wonderful present. Good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Jacinta Thompson and I'm the Executive Director and Events and Exhibitions Producer for the Bob Hawke Prime Ministerial Centre. Now, before we begin, I would like to ask Jack Buckskin, a proud Kaurna and Narungga man, to provide the welcome to country for all of us. Thanks, Jack.
Now, Marnie, how are you? Good. Look at that language being used. It's amazing. I remember asking that about 15, 20 years ago and heard cricket, so that's great to have your mob respond. And it's not like English when you ask somebody how they are and they actually don't care. I used to be a greenskeeper on a golf course, and a lot of the old guys go, "G'day, young fella, how are you?" and just keep walking. Like, you asked me how I was ready to tell you that I've been loving work today. So firstly, look, I'll introduce myself for those that don't know me. My name is Jack. I'm a proud Kaurna, Narungga and Wirrungga man, 3 groups from South Australia as well. My dad's Italian and Scottish. I always acknowledge my dad when I do this, but it's got nothing to do with this part. He just helped make me. My mum and dad started that whole reconciliation thing. I'm just a product of it. So for me to stand here is an honour to represent our families and our community and welcome you on the country for a protocol that's very important for us as Aboriginal people that we've been doing for so long, especially here in Adelaide. We've hosted ceremonies as far mob from Queensland for thousands of years came all the way down here for ceremonies, usually to the convention centre, but Bob Hawke building is pretty close. But for us to be able to do that is an honour, and to speak in our mother tongue language even more so. I've been a language and culture teacher for almost 20 years, and to be able to pass on our language to our children is amazing. And to introduce and welcome you and pay respect to our spiritual ancestors that are standing here on this country with us, that travel here with you, come all the way over here with you, mob, to acknowledge those ancestors when we gather in this space, because they don't all know each other. So our duty as traditional owners is to welcome you spiritually to the space, and not so much physically. Jacinta can do that because she's the boss. She can welcome you physically to this place. But it is an honour. My Aboriginal name is Ganyapundunduit, and nobody can ever say it, so people just call me Jack because it's easier, even my mum. So welcome to this part of the country on behalf of other Kaurna people, and I pay respects to all the Aboriginal mob that have come down to share these stories and to share their stories with everybody else. It is story, song, dance is significantly important throughout that. To pass that on to next generations, to do it in different mediums is so cool. I think it's just as fun to make this kind of stuff as it is to tell the story. So welcome here. Marota ngarluku buki anamini yalaka ngarlu wangandi mani ni burning ngarluku yatani tumini yachat nangatika ni ngarluku ni perna kumra yachmini yalaka mani ni burning ngarluku yatana ngarluku tula ninku tula yachatar tikama. Our welcome and our spirits and your spirits are welcome to stay and call this place home as you gather here. We acknowledge all those ancestors that go before us, your family members, our family members, back to the ancient ancestors that still live within these lands. I'm going to hand you over to my daughter to introduce herself and also welcome you in our mother tongue language as well. She can utilise both, and it's amazing to see. I'm the first person in my family to be able to speak our language fluently and publicly. My grandfather was physically beaten. I tried to teach my mum language. She's like, "I'm not doing that. Don't tell me how to say that." I was like, "Get out my classroom." So I had more patience with my daughter, and she can also welcome us on the country.
Nyanyar Malaya Gulio Gatanya Buckskin. My name's Lee Buckskin. My tenor is the Black Swan, and I'm the first one female in my family. Nyaya Ghana Narungga Wirrungga Mankara. I'm a proud Ghana Narungga Wirrungga girl. Yach Ghana Yarta, this is Ghana land. Kumanyaya Gada Wara Wangandi, and I speak in Ghana language. Manina Budi, Ghana Yartana, welcome to country.
I'm not done yet. Good job. look, it is great to hear our kids being able to do that. It shows you how far we've actually come as a society in such a little time. There's lots of work to be done, but these activities, our kids speaking language, being proud to be Aboriginal and embracing culture is deadly to see. We're going to stick around and enjoy all the festivities. We're actually going to head off and get her home for school, because some people get holidays. These young fellas got holidays, but some of them got to go back to school tomorrow because she had a day off today. So thanks for allowing us to be here. Welcome you, mob, and enjoy the rest of the time.
Thank you, Jack. So I'm delighted you have all joined us tonight as we hear from the creators of the Earth Above, a deep time view of Australia's epic history. And I want to welcome, and it's so lovely to see you all here, and thank you for making the journey, and quite a long journey to come and visit us at the Hawke Centre and to talk to this lovely audience tonight. So thank you, everyone. The Hawke Centre is thrilled to be co-presenting tonight's event with Deakin Motion Lab and the Australian Research Council Centre of Excellence for Australian Biodiversity and Heritage. I would also like to acknowledge their collaboration with First Nations communities and the University Wollongong Science Space in producing what is quite a remarkable project that is on display as part of the Adelaide Fringe. And I also would like to thank Heather Kroll, Adelaide Fringe Director and CEO, for her ongoing support, and it's wonderful to be collaborating with Heather and her team again. The session tonight is being recorded and will be available on the Hawke Centre website next week, so please bring this to the attention of friends and colleagues who could not join us tonight. We are also live streaming this presentation. I think we've got just over 200 people joining us, so hi everyone, welcome. And as we are filming, can I please ask that you switch your phone to silent? So, it is now my pleasure to welcome Associate Professor Martin Potter from Deakin University, who is going to introduce you to the wonderful creatives behind this project. Martin has a passion for exploring Australia's rich history, and he's produced some incredible groundbreaking films that bridged traditional Indigenous wisdom with modern scientific research. So please join me in welcoming Martin and our wonderful speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jacinta. And thank you to Heather Kroll for supporting us to come here and to be able to showcase the Earth Above. It's a planetarium film. It's currently featured at Electric Dreams, which is at the Dom Polsky Centre. Hopefully I can move on. And I'm just going to give a quick context to the project, to some of the people involved, some of the country that the project was made on, and the nations that we collaborated with in producing it. And then I'd like to take the chance to introduce our amazing panel of guests who've come to join us, who are some of the creators of the Earth Above. And here are some of the other creatives as well. This is a collective of 10 different nations from around the country, from Nyung country up in far north Western Australia, to Gunai Kurnai country and the Muddy people who are representing tonight, and Barkanji and Nyampa who are around Lake Mungo, the Guramuku and Dingao nations who are connected to Yigaru, Lizard Island, and Larrakia and Woolner at Girraween Lagoon, just south of Darwin. So we all came together to produce this immersive experience, the Earth Above, a deep time view of Australia's epic history. We are supported through the Australian Research Council, Centre of Excellence for Australian Biodiversity and Heritage. I would like to acknowledge one person very specifically in that amazing centre. It's the Chief Operating Officer, Nathan Wright, who's facilitated all of us to be here, booking our flights, our accommodation, our transport, everything. Nathan's been an extraordinary collaborator in this project, and he was hoping to come down here, and I'm afraid he's not able to, but I just really wanted to say hello to him on the live stream. And thank you again, Nathan, for everything that you've done. The Earth Above, as I said, ties together 4 key stories from 4 sites across Australia, where emerging archaeological research is entangled with Indigenous knowledge systems to really reimagine how we understand country, how we understand the place where we are. I'll play a quick trailer just to give you a sense of it. Apologies for the staggered video if it does play back. This is like a full dome thing, so you've got to imagine that it's covering the ceiling and surrounding you guys. So here we go. Here's a little excerpt of the show.
We first Australians travelled across continents and oceans to this country. With many voices and in many languages, we will show you some of the hidden tracks and traces our ancestors left behind. We will travel these ancient paths and share some of the deep time stories, illuminated by new relationships between emerging research and First Nations knowledge. This is the Earth Above, a deep time view of Australia's epic history.
So that's a quick taste of the overall project. Oh, thank you. We're going to highlight 2 stories from that from the Earth Above tonight, from Lake Mungo and from Clogs Cave on Gunai country. Lake Mungo is connected to 3 traditional owner groups, Muddy Muddy, Nyampa and Barkindji. I just wanted to quickly acknowledge the 2 sites that will not be presenting tonight. They are beautiful stories. This one we collaborated with Lorraine Williams, a Larrakia elder, who has really formulated and articulated the 7 seasons of the Gullamurgan Larrakia language calendar, and then we've tied that to a very deep exploration into seasonal change that's happened across 140,000 years that can be found preserved in this lagoon, the Girraween Lagoon. It's a beautiful story, and Lorraine has a book coming out this year as part of the First Knowledges series on seasons, and she's an amazing woman. I just wanted to shout her out as well. Clogs Cave, we have a couple of people tonight, and I'll introduce them properly soon. Uncle Russell and Bruno David, who have worked on this. So I'm going to jump through this quick. The Mungo story, we have a number of people who co-wrote, co-produced, animated, provided the motion capture, the voices for this, and really are instrumental in actually the discovery of the story that informed this particular component of the Earth Above, and we will get into that in more detail soon. And the final story is the Yigaroo story. Yigaroo, Lizard Island in far north Queensland, about 35 kilometres off the coast near Cooktown, is sacred to many. On this place, over 1,400 stone arrangements, stone arrangements made by people have been rediscovered in the past 7 years or so. And these stone arrangements are the most densely packed field of stone arrangements ever found in the Southern Hemisphere. It's almost like seeing Angkor Wat being torn back from the black wattle that's kind of threatened to consume it. It's an incredible cultural site that's just recently come to life. At the same time, on this same island group, the first traces of Indigenous-made lapita-style ceramics have been found, which is kind of like a smoking gun piece of evidence that ties the far north of Australia to the Coral Sea cultural interaction sphere, showing that there was international trade that happened across the region up to 2,500 years ago. Really, I think, changing the way that we understand the history of what happened when people came here thousands upon thousands of years ago. There was a continued connection that happened across nations as recently as, as far back as 2,500 years ago. All right, so without further ado, I would like to introduce first a very brief introduction in chronological order of the Pappen family who've come from Balranald, Muddy Muddy country, the heart of Muddy Muddy country, to talk to the story of Lake Mungo. I'll introduce you guys first and then I'll bring up Bruno and Russell. So Verna Pappen, if you'd like to ascend to the stage. Verna will lead the conversation with her sisters, Bernadette. As I said, we're going in descending chronological order here. Bernadette. Oh my God, are you really? You just lied to me. You threw me under the bus right there. Bernadette, first up. Mary. Yeah. Mary Pappen Jr. Audrina Pappen, please ascend to the stage. And Keaton, are you going to sit next to me? You're right there if you'd like to, young man. Thank you so much. And Keaton Pappen as well. Thank you very much. And we'll start off tonight properly with Uncle Russell Mullett and Professor Bruno David, who works at Monash University. Uncle Russell, I'm going to give the full introduction for both of you guys. Uncle Russell Mullett is a proud Gunai man who has been professionally involved in Aboriginal cultural heritage since 1989. It's a long time. Starting as a cultural research officer. Russell's currently the registered Aboriginal Party Manager for Gunai Land and Water Aboriginal Corporation, GLAWAC, which is an acronym I'm sure you will be reusing. So GLAWAC is the Gunai Land and Water Aboriginal Corporation. And an inspector and authorised officer under the Commonwealth Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Cultural Heritage Protection Act and Victoria's Aboriginal Heritage Act. Russell has been a member of the Victorian Aboriginal Heritage Council Board since 2021 and is the current chairman, and is a member of the Council's Ancestral Remains Policy and Repatriation Support Committee. Russell is a board member of the Gunai Traditional Owners Land Management Board that's been set up to ensure knowledge and culture of Gunai people is recognised in the management of joint managed parks and reserves between GLAWAC and the state of Victoria. And along with fellow presenter Professor Bruno David, Uncle Russell has been part of the team who were published in Nature Human Behaviour relating to the archaeological evidence of an ethnographically documented Australian Aboriginal ritual dated to the last age, which I think is probably going to form a significant component of your talk today. And these findings represent cultural knowledge passed down through 500 plus generations. So, Russell, please ascend to the stage. Thank you. And Bruno, why not? Yeah. And Bruno David. Bruno David is Professor of Archaeology at the Monash Indigenous Studies Centre at Monash University. He has been co-researching ancestral Gunai places with GLAWAC for 8 years, although there is a history going back to 1997, apparently. We might get to that. Bruno was recently awarded an Australian Research Council Industry Laureate to undertake 5 years of research with GLAWAC, Katungal, Sea and Coast Rangers on the effects of climate change and sea level rise on archaeological sites and landscapes along the Gunai coast. And so with that, I will pass the pointing piece to you guys and hand over for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Martin. Young guy, hello. First thing I want to do, and I'm disappointed Jack didn't stick around to acknowledge Gunai. And passing through a number of tribal countries on the way from Gippsland here. One of the things about flying, it's a tin can that I don't feel like I want to get in. If I wanted to fly, I'd be born at Pelican, Boran. But it's important to acknowledge the spirit ancestors that's still watch over us as we pass across country and pay due respects. Also, for those accompanying us on stage, I pay my respects to those being present, but also their ancestors, and I'm keen to engage. It was so exciting to come across and know that I was going to meet others that produce this bit of new technology of storytelling. This is sort of a duo. Yes, Bruno, please. Clogs Cave. And the real reason of revisiting Clogs Cave, it's been over 50 years since the first excavation took place there. I did ask the excavator why our people weren't invited to it. And she said there was no one around. I said they're only 35 kilometres down the road, thanks. But over the years, the first time I visited this cave was probably 89. There was some work in it. It's a bit of a map. Can we have a slide of what it looked like? Oh, sorry. Look, we'll come across that. I guess the engagement with Monash was one of the first things, knowing that we had a couple of things happening. People, a homeless person living in a rock shelter on the Mitchell River or the Wangangar. This is the side of it. A loathing by national parks or Parks Victoria to move the homeless person on. Clogs Cave, it was about slumping in the cave and losing valuable information. You can see the fairly big hole that's in the ground there. Bit of rock work to stabilise it after a little bit of work that we'd done. Back in about 2017, I went to Monash University with a colleague, Joanna Freslove, and we sat down with Bruno and his colleagues, and we talked about forming a partnership. It took us over 12 months to sign a memorandum of understanding before we started the research. We need to know and trust. It's like building a friendship. It's about trust, respect, and understanding.
Yeah, it was a real privilege just meeting in the first place and being asked to be part of a Glowak-led project. But as Russell said, it's not just about doing archaeology and the like. It's about getting to know each other, getting to understand each other, but also to meet country and country meeting the people involved from the outside. So it was an absolute privilege to be able to even start the whole process. And through time, we, one thing led to another, didn't it? And one of the key things about doing this kind of work is that places are not just physical places. And one of the things that at the university we learn from community is that places are family. It may not be my family, but it's somebody's family. So when doing archaeology, and we use the word archaeology, it refers to the physical traces of the ancestors, but these are cultural places. And again, anything we do, we have to treat with respect and as family, as living family.
As we progress through, I guess the first engagement, particularly at Clogs Cave, was that we had a number of folk come along from Monash, some of your students, and it was one of those places, even with a couple of people in the cave, at one time the dust starts to stir up, and we changed who might go in the cave, and we relocated people down the road to another rock shelter to get some training and guidance. I think each step of the way, it was about talking about next steps.
And when we first started working in Clocks Cave, as Russell was saying, we had university students participate, but very quickly we realised that it wasn't quite an appropriate place for the students. The way that Clocks Cave had been written about before, it was all about food and shelter, essentially. But very quickly we realised that's not what the cave was used for by the ancestors. It was used in a very different way. And this talk, I guess, is going to present some of that journey of our realisation of what kind of place it really is.
One of the other important engagements with Monash was Bruno in particular leading the field team and getting in people with the right skills and knowledge to help to do the work. And one of them is this chap here that you'll hear from a little bit later in the presentation, Jean-Jacques, and his knowledge was just extraordinary. Twice I think I missed turning my phone on when he was giving a small talk about a rock, where that came from, and putting it back into a position. And just this meticulous knowledge that he had, and each step of the way it was opening a new learning for, I guess, things moving around in the cave that others had missed.
So Jean-Jacques Delannoy. He's a French geomorphologist and cartographer from University of Savoie-Mont-Blanc in France. He has done a lot of work. He's the lead geomorphologist at Chauvet Cave in France, which is a site that goes back about 35,000 years. And his specialty is there's different ways of thinking about. One is to read the sediments, read the rocks. How did they form? What happened in the past? But this concept of reading the rocks is one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is hearing the rocks, hearing what the place is telling you. And the first few days when he's somewhere, working somewhere, he's just listening, he's just looking, he's just engaging with the place itself. And he's a very quiet man like this, but by his quietness, he can hear things, he can see things. And then all of a sudden, he'll call us over and he said, look at this, look at that. And we go, wow, we've been here for so long and we hadn't seen these things. And some of the things, for example, is how some of the old ancestors may have worked the rock. And he can find a rock that's over there and digitally, with the tools that he has, refit them, conjoin them to another place in a completely different part, and they fit perfectly together. And then from that, he can talk about the hands of the ancestors, how things have happened in the past. And these are the kinds of stories that he's building at Clocks Cave. Because we don't have a particular slide of it, I'll give you an example. There's a lot of stalactites in a particular part of the cave. And one of the things that he quickly noticed that only within the height of a person, the stalactites have been broken. And they were broken by people.
So one thing about the planetarium is that you're taken inside, but if we can roll this through, Bruno, this is the original 3D that was taken by Johan, who came with Jean-Jacques. So we'll take you inside the cave to give you a better real image of what it looks like.
So this was done with a terrestrial LiDAR, a laser system with photogrammetric, three-dimensional photography draped over the top of it. Now, one of the things about Clocks Cave as we enter it, one of the first things we notice is that there's a huge hole in the ground as soon as you get into the cave. And that's from the 1971-1972 excavation. The original pit is still there open. And I guess when we first started working in there, that was the first thing we faced with, is what do we do here? And there's a particular reason to why Russell asked us to be part of this and to research the site. Did you want to?
It was the slumping in there. Between a period of 1989 and 2017, a number of times I'd been in there, more had been slumping, and there was almost an emergency situation to do something about it. So Bruno said, "I'll come in and clean it up, and we'll talk about it." So, yeah, in the process of cleaning up walls, we found, or Bruno noted, that on the most extreme side that was slumping, that had already slumped.
Yeah, so some of the walls, 2 of the walls of the square had really fallen in. So the person, that's Joe Crouch from Monashini, standing there in the pit, the original hole was actually twice that depth. The soil in the bottom of the pit has filled in a much deeper hole. The original hole was about 2 metres 80 in depth. And what we did is a tiny little excavation here, 50 by 50 centimetres square, after cleaning up this wall. And after cleaning up the wall, one of the things that we could do, this is the original 1972 photograph. This is our new photograph. And this is the drawing of the wall after cleaning it up. And we were able to connect very specific points from the original photo to the new photo, the same rock, and very specific parts of the rocks. Which means that the new work that we were doing could connect with the old work. Now, something that hadn't been picked up in the 70s, in the early 70s, and remember that techniques have now developed over the past 50 years, and this is something that Jean-Jacques Delannoy, the geomorphologist, picked up on. By analysing the sediments, he saw that this section here is all mixed, and the carbon dates inside here indicate that everything is mixed up in here. 6,000 years ago, through dripping water, a hole formed in the ground. And this is an example from Chauvet Cave in France of a sinkhole. So essentially, all of a sudden, 6,000 years ago in Clogs Cave, the sediments just collapsed, created a hole, but filled in very, very fast, so almost instantly, with torrential sediment that fell from upslope. The slope in Clogs Cave is about the same slope as here. So essentially what that meant is it's only the top level here, the last 6,000 years, that are in situ, where the sediments have not been disturbed. And what we found in that section, remember it's only a 50 by 50 centimetre square, is a standing stone. The standing stone was sitting on a whole set of layers of ash from having burnt around it. And around the standing stone is a whole lot of tiny broken stalactites, crystals, all around it. So again, an indication this is not a camping place, an everyday camping place. This is a special place.
The association with the standing stone was one piece of evidence. The crystals, there's a belief system in our old people about the den of Nargan, an iconic visitor experience on the Wangangara or the Mitchell River. And it's a story about Nargans living in the cave. And Nargans were creatures made of stone. And if you wandered out into the wrong place, then they're going to get you. And so those stories were told around campfires at night that really put the wind up, yeah? You know, sort of made their hairs on their neck sort of stand up a bit as young children, yeah.
So once we realised that this is all mixed up, we were digging in here, and most of the excavation from the 70s had gone through this infield sinkhole. We then did a small excavation against this side wall here. And you can see how the layers of this wall are all in situ. They're all, well, not totally intact, but they're all layered, one on top of the other. So we did an excavation, again, of 50 by 50 centimetres, and we got 69 radiocarbon dates to date the sequence. Now, one of the amazing things about this sequence, there is not a single reversal in the carbon date for 25,000 years. The deeper you go, the older it gets. Before 25,000 years, it goes back to about 50,000 years ago. Before 25,000 years, there was massive rockfall. So the older parts were mixed. But we've got a beautiful sequence of layers dating from older to younger. And they date to the last 25,000 years. At a level of 11,000 years, all of a sudden we found this. Now, the whole excavation is 50 by 50 centimetres. The fire here, the size of this fireplace is half the size of my hand. It's a tiny little fire. And from the fire is a stick. It's as if it was put there yesterday, except that it was put there, this one, 11,000 years ago. And there was another one a few centimetres below that, exactly the same thing, and that one was 1,000 years older. Now, a whole team of different researchers analysed the fireplace and the wood itself and what was on the wood. So the sticks, each one had been trimmed of little branches. We could see the trim marks. They had both been smeared with fat. Each was found on a tiny little fireplace, as you saw. And the wood for each one was the same species. It's from a casuarina wood. Each of these items is duplicated exactly in records from Gunai storytellers and knowledge keepers from the 1870s. And they relate to the activities of a special person, of a special powerful person.
Called the Mullumalung, a doctor. And it's no different today. Tribes had doctors. They had spiritual guidance, and some of the doctors, they were men or they were women, and similar with the spiritual guidance, they were men and women. So it opened up this new knowledge of interpretation about the place. One of the other things we were talking about, you mentioned the straws and the white powder on the floor. That was spread on the floor to know if a Nagan had gone into the cave. So it's like, I guess, laying some dust on the floor, and if anyone walked in there, the doctor would know, the Mullumalung would know if someone's been around.
Dr. El Grono from the Australian National University has now analysed the sediments from this site and found heaps of pollen from flowers, but the pollen that occurs in the soil from individual species is stuck together. In other words, it hasn't been blown around by the wind. And the entry to the cave is a narrow entrance into the cave. So the flowers are brought in there by people. And all of the species of flowers that occur in here were documented in the 1870s to be used by Gunai for special purposes.
We were very lucky that we had a well-known scientist, Alfred Howard, living in Gippsland. He arrived there in the 1860s as looking for gold. by the state government, the colonial government. He was the chap that was sent out to find Burke and Wills, if you didn't know his background. But when he was in Gippsland, he took a keen interest in learning about our people. We were ever so fortunate that he was there to record these stories, but in some regards you had to trick people into telling the stories about rituals and initiation ceremonies.
Now, this information that was revealed through Gunai knowledge and the archaeology combined has informed the Earth Above planetarium show on Clogs Cave. And this is us and other Gunai community members visiting Deakin University with Martin, was working, and reconstructing or creating this visual landscape.
Alfie Hudson's is a creative genius,
Yeah.
Whether it's storytelling, whether it's dance, or just creating things. He's just so creative culturally.
And Alfie here is, we'll see in a minute, is dancing, he was creating actually, do you want to say something?
Keep going.
Is making the movements, making the actions of the old ancestors, as we saw in the archaeological evidence through the breaking of the stalactites.
And once again, the connection with Deakin was fantastic. Through Martin and his team, absolutely brilliant.
So essentially, Alfie's being an avatar here of the actions of the ancestors.
One of the main reasons for developing and using this technology, places like Clogs Cave are places that we can't get our elders into. Even to have people in the cave interrupts this time capsule. And we've only explored a small part of that time capsule with the help of Bruno and your team, and that collaboration and understanding. It's a joy to have the footage so that elders can sit back, have a cup of tea, have a bicky, and be taking it into these places. But how do we then spread that more broadly with people? Well, I guess we're talking about a fairly sensitive area, and there are things we're telling about the Mullumalung, but there are other things that we're not telling about the Mullumalung in this story. Their roles in our society are really important in the past, and I guess we acknowledge the use of this new technology. Yes, it's still part of oral history that we pass on, but we're using a new medium to help transfer that knowledge. And young ones will be more engaged, and they don't get the opportunity to sit around the campfire at night, as I did as a boy. Over 23,000 years ago, a Mullumalung snapped off and collected these stalactites for their special powers of protection.
Very small taste.
Yes, so the full thing is on on the Earth Above presentation. And I guess this is where to from here in a way.
Well, we haven't finished with clogs totally yet, but there's another important cave that similarly was dug back in the 80s and we're revisiting. This one's got something special in it too, so.
And maybe, could I ask, could we, we'll hold off on some of that information until the end. We've got some questions and wrap up stuff after the other section. I think you perhaps got a quick acknowledgement as well, Bruno.
Yes, we'll go through that. And I'll have to jump through this one.
Yes.
With this one, sorry.
What have you done to it?
C'est un bonheur de travailler ici parce que bon, cette grotte est vraiment unique. Cette grotte est vraiment extrêmement bien préservée. Elle n'a pas été abîmée par les gens qui sont rentrés dans la grotte. Donc elle a été très bien protégée. Et cette protection est essentielle parce qu'elle permet de conserver les informations pour les générations à venir. Et ça, c'est essentiel si on veut transmettre des histoires, transmettre des informations. Et je suis certain que dans plusieurs générations, nos enfants, nos petits-enfants ou les jeunes qui vont travailler dans la grotte, ils auront peut-être d'autres outils, d'autres moyens, et vraisemblablement, ils pourront aller beaucoup plus loin dans les raisonnements. Donc, en fait, nous sommes qu'une petite partie d'une grande chaîne, en fait, à la fois scientifique, humaine, et puis de raisonnement.
A lot of people to acknowledge in relation to this, and without that full team of people, the stories can't be told. Once again, I acknowledge someone sitting in the audience that's ended late. Maddie, nice to see you.
So I'd just like to thank Bruno and Russell for their section. So thank you so much, guys.
You got to take it?
I'd like to hand over to Werner to...
Hang on to it, Keaton.
Are we sure we want to do this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'd like to hand over to Verna Pappen to introduce her family and to talk a little bit about Muddy Muddy culture, the connection to Mungo. So, thanks, Verna.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's a beautiful centre. It's an honour to be here, and it's a shame Brother Boy and Nisi Girl couldn't stay so we could spend some time with them, but I acknowledge the traditional owners, the brothers and sisters that are in the audience. There's a few I can see up the top there. Now listen, we come from Balranald, Muddy Muddy country. We are the daughters of Mary Pappen and the granddaughters of Alice Kelly. Now I'm not sure if there's many of you that have been to Mungo, had the opportunity to go to Mungo, put your hand up. So there's a few of you. It's a pretty sacred, significant site for us. We had the pleasure, or we had the, I guess the privilege, of growing up and walking with Nana Kelly and Mum on country all of our lives. We've only just lost Mum, so it's a little bit raw for us. But going back, we're strong, muddy women. We're also Wamba, and we also have a connection to the Anyamutna people in the Flinders Ranges. So I'd like to acknowledge those mob too. Bernadette's the oldest, as she made clear earlier. And then there's Mary, and then it's our great niece Audrina and our great nephew Keaton, who happen to be Bernadette's grandchildren. So they're very lucky because they're growing with us. They're doing with us what we did with our aunties and our grandparents and our mothers. So we're very lucky, and these kids are too. And they'll tell their own stories soon enough. So we're going back to Mungo. We've been working on Mungo. I wouldn't say working, that's a wrong statement. We've been growing up on Mungo as traditional owners and working in partnership with the neighbouring tribes, which are the Nyampa people and the Barkindji people. And we have a really strong relationship. We are family, we look after Mungo and the surrounding World Heritage area, and we also make decisions and come together to make sure that all of our roles and responsibilities as custodians and traditional owners are met. So getting back to Mungo and why we're here, above the earth, the earth above. I'm so used to looking after the below the earth, and you know why. So, Bernadette, do you want to just say a little bit about...
So, above the earth, working with the earth above, sorry. I haven't even had a drink yet. Working with Martin in doing this film. So the footprints were... We were just discussing this, how long ago. It's well over 19 years ago that the footprints were found. And they were actually found by little Mary, sitting right here. And she was actually out working with an archaeologist, Steve Webb. I don't know if anybody knows, or you would have heard of Steve Webb. So she was out working in the field with him, and they were getting ready to pack up and finish up, I think, for the week. And little Mary got an eye like an hawk, walking along, happened to look down and spot something. So I think she got her little brush and she's down on the ground and she calls out to Steve, "Steve, come back and have a look at this." So of course he comes back and they start to uncover a footprint. And then that footprint turns into more footprints. And then I think over 500 footprints were then discovered, thanks to little Mary.
Thanks, Beth.
Did you? You want to talk about that, Mary? Mary's shy. She reckons she's shy, but she's not. And that's where we are with the footprints, and that's how the footprints have come about. And then to meet up with Martin and the University of Wollongong to make a film and be asked to be a part of that was a great honour for us. One, being, connected to the country out there, and Mary being the one that found them. But also to have my grandkids be a part of that. So, yeah, there he goes. He's a real show pony. And to have them be involved, and not just the Muddies, but also members of the Nyampa and the Barkindji people also, all coming together to put together a story on what we thought or what we believe the footprint story is about with our ancestors. So, if you want to have a look.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
I'll just leave it on that slide.
And so using, being a part of that, being out on Mungo was really emotional for us. And like Verna said, because we recently just lost our mother. And so being out on country and doing this and then taking the kids out, this is what we done when we were little. So, walking with our aunties and our mother and our grandmother, and to continue on doing that today. So Audrina, which is my little granddaughter there, was the narrator for the little girl's voice in the film, which was pretty awesome for her because we, as Jack said earlier, we're starting to learn to teach our kids our language. So we're now starting to teach the kids the Muddy language as well as learn it ourselves, and to be able to pass it on to our kids and future generations. So when Audrina worked with Martin doing the readings, we said, why not put some muddy words in there for animals and that, so which Martin picked up really well, good at saying, and that's where that came about. And then of course Keaton, you know, running around doing stuff. So, do you want to talk about the film? On how you felt?
I guess she says no.
No.
Well,
Okay.
someone wants to talk about the film.
What the film, when we done the film, then what did you think about it at Mungo when you run around and done all this?
It was great.
It was great. It was great. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, quick clarification for folks. How old are the fossilised footprints that Mary found?
Well, 18,000 or 23 or something like that.
So 18 to 23,000 years old.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, we meant to say that.
Incredible. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Audrina. Can you remember any of the muddy words that you said?
I'm Steve.
Sounds very similar to a phrase that we use commonly now. Pakamanama? What's that one?
I don't know. I can't remember. You don't even know?
I know. You guys are the experts. Emu. So Pakamanama, emu. It's really amazing because Audrina and Keaton's great-grandma and your grandmother, Alice Kelly, was the person who basically saved the muddy language. And I just wondered maybe you guys could talk a little bit about that. Like, she literally saved it. She salvaged it in a most incredible way. And so it's amazing to see it reanimated through Audrina.
So with the muddy language, well, Nana used to write things down on paper. Anything she could get her hands on, she would write on, whether it be tissue paper or toilet paper or, you know, even on a wall or in a book or a Bible. So she would write things down, and then a few years, this is long after we lost our grandmother, we run a workshop out at Mungo, and the muddy people, we all got together. We had the linguist, Louise Herskis, and she sat down, and we put together a folder for the muddy people of our language, because she spent a lot of time in the early days talking to the muddy people before they passed away, Jack Long and other people like that. So that's where we got our language put into a book, and it's only the muddies that have that book. Myself, I've got one, Mary, Mum, and then other family members, and we use that now to, or Mary and myself go into the schools and do the NAIDOC and teach the muddy language on our own country, on the muddy country. And it's really great to hear kids, you know, saying the muddy language and for different types of animals, because, you know, they've got that understanding that our people have been here for thousands and thousands of years. We didn't just come, you know, in the last, whatever people think we came, or where we came from. We've always been here. And the only way that people can understand us now is if we can teach the younger generations to acknowledge and respect our culture and our history, because we got the richest history in the world, the Aboriginal people, us, traditional owners of our lands. And we've always been very kind and caring people, and that's what we're here to do, to share our knowledge with you, and then for you to pass that on and have a better understanding and think, you know, better of our people and what we've been through. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Better let someone else talk.
Say that the work that Martin's done with the Muddy Muddy group in particular at Mungo is really important because it's given us an opportunity to share our dreaming stories. Because if the dreaming stories are shared, and especially with the younger generation, even though the older generation will appreciate it, I would hope, that the younger generation will then get that insight into how Aboriginal people were and how strong our beliefs are now. It's really important that we have an opportunity to make films and animations like this one.
To bring our culture and heritage to life.
I told you she's not shy.
I'm just saying, and bringing our culture and heritage to life on the screen like he did. So
Yeah.
Thanks, Martin.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I'm aware of the time. Thank you. And we've got a couple of pre-submitted questions, which I can't remember where I left them, which I'd like to ask folks now. Thanks, Renee. Whoopsie daisies. So, for the traditional owners on the panel, this includes you, Keaton. How does it feel sharing your stories of country in this way to a wider audience?
It's really empowering for us because we're getting our stories out there, they're getting heard, we're sharing them, and people are understanding about our way of life, our history, our past, and our future. I think it's really important.
Thanks, Verna. Thumbs up. I don't know if Uncle Russell's shy. Thanks, Verna. Okay, another question is about how might this experience be embedded or adapted within curriculum in school classrooms in an ongoing way?
Well, it's going to make a huge impact in the schools. Like I said, for the children and teaching the kids from an early age, right up to, old people, wherever, whatever age group. That's always been something very important to us and very close to our hearts because our mother Mary was very she was very strong on education and passing it on to future generations, not just our kids, but to all kids. So for us to share our culture and our history with you, and we all work together and walk together as one because, we're all on this earth, we're all the same. And so that was one of the big things that Mum really pushed for was through the education and to get it out there in the schools. So if we can get this out into the schools and all over the world, wherever it goes, then that's going to better us also to know that people are going to appreciate our history. So
creates awareness and respect because the younger people need that to learn that to grow. When they grow
Hold your own microphone, Mary.
hold the microphone up because you've got people way up there that want to hear your voice. Yeah, and like Mary said, the culture, to make people aware and to pass that on. So that's a big thing for us, and we've inherited that from our mother. So she was a very strong person. She spoke her mind. She had a very strong voice, but she also spoke the truth. But she also spoke for our people, for the Muddy people, but she also spoke for all Aboriginal people on this earth. So she was an advocate for everybody, and she was a very kind and caring person when she spoke, and she really took people under her wing, and she gave people opportunities that nobody else would give them. And so for us to continue on doing that, what Mum done, which we're still doing today, is really an honour for us too, to continue on in Mum's footsteps.
And just quickly, it's really important too for those kids, Aboriginal kids, non-Aboriginal kids, but we've got a lot of kids in our community that aren't connected to our country through being a direct descendant, but they're living on country and they're off their country, but then sharing these stories with those kids too will help them understand the country that they're on. And some Aboriginal kids that are in care arrangements and things like that, this is an opportunity for them to have a connection to their people as well, because they may not in other circumstances have that opportunity. So it's really bringing everybody together, but giving everybody an understanding, sharing our stories, passing on everything that we've learnt and that we've had the privilege of growing up knowing and experiencing, to share that with the wider communities, and that goes for all of our country, all of our mobs across all the different states that have participated in this project. So, and I think it'd be wonderful if we could all go to those other countries where these other stories are being told and meet those traditional owners.
Cultural exchange program.
Yeah, and go and bring them to Mungo. I think they'd love that. And share our stories and take them and show them our sacred sites and our special areas, not the real sacred ones, but the ones that we can share. Obviously some are secret, but that would be a wonderful opportunity too, so.
Hey, all right. Well, let's get that one happening. I'd just like to quickly point out this painting that's been done by the Nyampa artist Nola Taylor, which I think actually kind of extends on Verna's point about the connections that are made in the research that's been done. And this is just one story from this little project. I mean, I know that you guys have so many beautiful stories about these layered connections that are made, but when we did the premiere of this Earth Above project in Wollongong, Alfie Hudson, who Uncle Russell talked about, who did the performance of the Mullamalung, the motion capture that you saw, came up as the kind of Gunai Kurnai ambassador, for want of a better word, and met Nola and her family, and one of the other women who was working with us up in Darwin, Annie Risk, Larrakia and Barkindji woman, realised that Nola and Alfie were cousins who had been separated because of removal, and it was an incredible family reunion. I get choked up talking about this. Nola painted this artwork inspired by this reconnection to family and country that came out of that work, and it's just a beautiful story that came from this. Kind of speaks to the joy of reconnections that are being made now, and the hope, but also the sadness and the silence of the history that I suppose you guys are all too aware of.
And that's why we call Mungo the meeting place, because it is a meeting place for people all over the world to come and meet. And Mum always said that Mungo does not belong to, yes, we are the custodians of the area, as well as the other tribal groups, but we don't own the land owns us, and we are there just to protect and preserve it, but it's also there for us to share with everybody else. So, and as you know, the ones that have been to Mungo, it's a very spiritual place, and you will find that when you go there. And so therefore it's a sharing place. We don't just own it, we share it, and we want to share it with the rest of the world, and it's a learning place. So if you haven't been, make sure you come.
Oh, beautiful invitation. Okay, well, I think we've kind of got time for wrap-up comments from everybody. If you'd like to add anything, Uncle Russell or Bruno, start with you guys and work our way back.
Yeah, have it.
No, we've got our questions here. Yeah.
I guess, not being Indigenous person myself, it's a massive privilege of being able to share these experiences and share being on country and caring for country, having been invited to be part of it. So I guess the key word for me is a big thank you.
I'm pleased you ladies had the microphone on those questions. Totally agree with what you're saying, and I think we've only started on the journey of opening up all these stories that are sitting on land, and the spirits are there with it. Exploring it in a different way from a lot of other things that are going on. You know, and I guess climate change, that challenge with us, is at the forefront that we need to deal with, and these young ones will be dealing with into the future. So life's a challenge. Life's a challenge when you're growing up as a young person. And it's ever so important to remember, you're right, you know, we are part of the country, Waruk in our language, and the young ones have got this custodianship, but it's a custodianship shared with everyone. You know, we can't do it by ourselves.
Oh. Any final words from the Pappen family?
I feel bad.
Oh, come on.
I think it's really important to know too that the dreaming it's spiritual, but it's a very powerful place. We grow up and we learn of our dreaming, and we learn of our stories, and they're shared and they're taught to us. And then we go into the dreaming at the end of life, and then we become the dreaming story. So that's a cycle, and it's shared, and it's a living dream time. So our grandmother's in the dreaming, our mother's in the dreaming, and they have their stories. And part of that dreaming is sharing their stories, as well as the older ancestral stories. Just wanted to share that. It's been fantastic. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, thanks for coming. Okay. So that's our time. Thank you so much. I just firstly want to thank all of our panel for coming and for sharing their stories and their experience so generously. So one more round of applause for you guys. Thank you. If you haven't seen The Earth Above, we would love if you did go to see it during the Fringe. That's why we're here. It's at the Electric Dreams program at the Dom Polsky Centre until the 23rd of March. It will get a release at the Adelaide Planetarium from March onwards. So if you don't catch it during the Fringe, because it's Mad March, the Adelaide Planetarium will be showing it afterwards. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It's been really inspiring for all of us to see a full house. Thank you.